Emblem Engage!
Fire Emblem Engage has been my favourite Fire Emblem game so far, and a big reason for that opinion is the emblem rings. Not only did seeing characters like Lucina and Marth again bring a lot of nostalgia to the game, but the way emblem rings were implemented in the game gave me a sense of limitless creativity when it came to character customization that I hadn't felt with other games. Not only could you forge weapons and choose classes for your army as always, but you could also give them specific skills and boosts by pairing them with a specific emblem. Tying reclassing to the emblems and their weapon proficiencies also helped to justify their importance in unit building. We then got the Engage DLC, which gave us the fellow Xenologue, 5 new playable characters, and a total of 7 new emblem bracelets. Tiki from Arcanea, Hector from the Blazing Blade, Soren from the Tellius games, Crom and Robin from Awakening, Camilla from Fates, the Lords from Three Houses, and Veronica from Fire Emblem Heroes. These emblem bracelets brought even more options for character customization, but their inclusion and creation is something that's been debated within the fandom. Some feel that the DLC itself isn't worth it, especially when some of the DLC emblems can make the game so easy that it takes the challenge out of the game. I was never that good at Fire Emblem though, so for me the DLC emblems are great, if not a bit tedious to recruit. The DLC did get me thinking though. Specifically, I've been thinking about how there are only 6 DLC emblems that are related to the main series games. Each DLC emblem has a conversation with the emblem from their game, as well as a boosted engage attack when someone with that emblem is adjacent to them. From this we can see that Celica, Sigurd, Leif, Roy, Erica and Micaiah don't have an associated DLC emblem. Most of these emblems are from older games, 3 of which have never received an English translation. From the other 3, we know that Fire Emblem SOV wasn't a particularly popular remake. Radiant Dawn fans could enjoy Ike and Soren, and for Sacred Stones there just weren't that many plot relevant characters that aren't Erica and Ephraim. The DLC developers weren't going to add an additional 13 emblems into the game, and so ultimately they added DLC emblems from popular games that players across the globe would have a relationship with and want to purchase the DLC to get access to. For me though, it is a bit of a shame. Sacred Stones, Radiant Dawn and Genealogy are some of my favourite games from the franchise, and I would have loved to see them represented in the DLC, and that's what I want to do today. Hi, I'm Severus Gudra, and today I want to do a thought experiment to see how easy it would be to create DLC emblem bracelets for the remaining 6 main series games to accompany the remaining emblems. Specifically, I want to come up with an idea for an emblem bracelet for each game that would fit within the existing game of Engage. That includes trying to come up with unique mechanics that they might bring to the game. I'm also going to try and flesh them out as much as possible so that they work like actual emblems. That includes coming up with a character for each game, plus their emblem name and a name for the bracelet, 3 engage weapons with unique features, 2 sync skills for units who either wear the emblem's bracelet or inherit them from the arena, an inheritable stat boost and weapon skill, an engage skill for when the unit engages with the emblem, an engage attack that can be used once per engage, the stats that equipping the emblem ring gives you, the weapon proficiencies that building a relationship with an emblem can get you, and the Jawn map that will be the scene for their divine paralogue. Each engage skill and engage attack also comes with type bonuses for certain units, and the engage attacks also get a plus version if the other emblem from that game is adjacent, so I'm going to include those too. This video is going to be done in 2 parts, with me unpacking the creative process and going into the first 3 emblems in this video, and then the final 3 and a summary in the next. Stick around to see the full thing. Let's get into the creative process. Obviously the first step was to pick which character would be representing each game as a DLC emblem. Some of these were really easy picks, but others were a little bit harder. Every Fire Emblem game has a huge cast of characters to consider, and when there isn't an obvious answer, every unit can feel like a viable option. To narrow things down, I looked at the other DLC bracelets to see what they had in common and what factors the developers might have taken into account when picking each game's representative. Mainly, I was trying to figure out how they might have made decisions for games where there were a few potential options. After looking at the other emblems, I came up with the 4 main criteria. The DLC emblems were relevant to their story, they had a close relationship with the other emblem from their game, and they were liked or at least well known by the fandom. They also made unique contributions as emblems through their weapons, skills and mechanics, like Veronica giving you the ability to summon new units or Tiki turn your unit into a dragon. This isn't a perfect framework by any means, there were some emblems who fit the criteria better than others, but each emblem fit 3 out of 4. The need for unique mechanics also seemed to be the most important criterion, because there would be no point in getting a new emblem ring just for it to function like Marth 2.0. Let's take Camilla as an example and compare her to another candidate, Ayra. You could argue that Ayra made more sense as a second emblem for Fire Emblem Fates. She's directly relevant to the story in all 3 versions, she has a close relationship with Corrin, and she's liked by the fandom. But we already have a dancer emblem in Byleth, for some reason. Other than getting access to some Naginatas and lances, Ayra just wouldn't have that much contribute uniquely as an emblem. Camilla, on the other hand, has a much smaller role in the story of Fate, especially Birthright and Revelations, but she is close with Corin and she's liked within the fandom for reasons. But where Camilla shines is through her contributions as an emblem, giving the unit equipping her the ability to act like a flying unit when engaged and being a viable emblem for both magic and physical units with her engaged weapons. The other thing I noticed was that every DLC emblem also made an appearance as a bond ring for their main game emblem. This obviously makes sense due to their story relevance and relationship to the main character, but was a massive help in narrowing down my selections for games that had a large cast or pure selection of viable candidates. Now obviously with 20 emblems in the game already, trying to come up with 6 new emblems who all had unique contributions was tough, especially when those contributions had to make sense for each emblem. Some games just don't have an abundance of cool weapons and mechanics that hadn't already been used, or were usable by characters that had a role in the game's story. To make some of these choices fit, I did give myself a little bit of grace in what I allowed as reasonable. To keep this in line with the other emblems, a threshold for what was acceptable was that I wouldn't go past the same level of allowing Lynn to have a paralogue and engage weapon that aren't from her base game. Technically, she shouldn't have the Muller gear, but ultimately it makes sense why she has it. I had a similar problem when it came to the inheritable stat boosts you can get from each emblem. There are 19 emblems that offer inheritable boosts to most stats in the game. The 7 DLC emblems all offer an inheritable boost to 2 skills for a much higher SP cost, which gives you some space to manoeuvre, but it also means that most stat combinations that make sense have been used up. Equally, all the skill combinations are chosen so that each stat gains the same boost. For example, Tiki gives you both HP and luck because both of those stats have large boosts, whereas Hector's strength and defense combo gives you smaller boosts. I did my best to try and find unused stat pairings that both matched with the stats my emblems boosted and had similar increases, but this didn't work for one of them as there was no way to make it work. Similarly with the stat boost that you get for equipping a bracelet, there were just way too many combinations among a total of 26 emblems to guarantee that my emblems would have had a unique combination of 3 stats. As much as I wanted my emblems to be as unique as possible, it was more important that my stat selections made sense for each unit's own history and its function as an emblem. It wouldn't make any sense, for example, if an Arden emblem bracelet boosted your magic, speed and move stats because Arden is an armor knight. I mainly focused on making sure that my DLC emblems boosted different stat combos to the 7 real DLC emblems, and again I managed to do this with all but one emblem. When it came to the inheritable weapon skills, I got a little bit creative as well. Each emblem you get has an inheritable skill that changes your attacking stats when you have a certain weapon equipped. The base game gave us 5 weapon skills: power, precision, agility, focus and mastery, which is exclusive to saves. The thing is, I've never actually used these skills in any playthrough, and so I have no idea how good they are, what attributes would make sense for what weapon, and so on. I feel like I could be adding in, for example, knife agility to an emblem with no idea that this skill would be completely useless. However, I did notice that all of the DLC emblems added a different effect as their weapon skill: guard. This skill reduces the damage your unit takes when equipping a certain weapon. This gave me the confidence to come up with my own DLC weapon skill, might. This has the opposite effect for weapon guard, letting units do additional damage with that specific weapon equipped. The last thing to consider was game balance. I won't profess to be an expert in this. I don't really know much about the maths of Fire Emblem games, what stat boosts are reasonable game breaking, how much a game differs between its difficulty modes. To this date, the hardest run I've done of any Fire Emblem game is a hard classic run of Engage. Maddening mode just doesn't really appeal to me. With that in mind, I've tried to consider whether the things I have added are suitable, but if I get a number wrong and accidentally create a game-breaking power nuke, then let me know in the comments. The same considerations were also applied to sync skills. Sometimes a sync skill can be fine in one unit, but if everyone has it then it would make the game too easy or boring. For that reason, some of the sync skills I've come up with will not be inheritable from the arena, like how you can't inherit the cleric skill from Emblem Micaiah. So that's the creative process. Let's finally discuss the units I chose for each game and how I would make them work. Celica's Emblem, Fire Emblem Gaiden. Starting off with the second game in the franchise, we have Fire Emblem Gaiden and its remake Shadows of Valentia. The main game emblem for this game was one of the 2 main lords, Celica. Out of Celica's bond rings, there are a few that are close with Celica, but there was only ever really one choice for this DLC emblem: it's Arm. He's the other main character from the game, and he was likely left out of the initial cast of emblems because they needed a magic emblem way more than another sword user. But if we're adding another emblem from Gaiden, then it's got to be him. He's inseparable from the game's story, he's Celica's best friend and later husband, and the fandom definitely knows of him, so let's see what Emblem Alm looks like. The Emblem of the Deliverance resides in the bracelet of the Revolutionary. Arm is intended to be used by physical attackers to make them more durable, and to let them help weaker units find ways to contribute. Equipping Arm's bracelet gives its wearer additional HP, strength and defense. Building your bond level with him will also give you proficiency for swords and bows, and with Arm's emblem bracelet you can inherit a boost to your HP and defense stats, and you can also inherit 5 levels of the bow might skill. For Arm's sync skills, I gave him Subdue and Offering. Subdue works the same as a combat art from Shadows of Valentia. Your unit can sacrifice their own HP to leave their foe with 1 HP after attacking, like False Swipe in Pokemon. This could be used to help other units train up by getting kill experience, or if you need the enemy to stay alive for a turn for movement related purposes. Offering comes from the Mila Shrines in dungeons, and in Engage would allow a unit to queue at any status conditions and boost defense by 2 for the rest of the battle by eating leftovers from the cafe. Not exactly game breaking, but helpful when your unit just needs a little bit more durability. You're essentially getting a 1-use defense tonic and antitoxin when you consume your leftovers. When it comes to engaging with Arm, you get access to 3 engage weapons: the Royal Sword, the Blessed Bow, and the Falchion. The Royal Sword is just a powerful sword, the Blessed Bow is effective against Corrupted and Flyers, and the Falchion restores your HP when equipped at the start of each turn. Engaging with Arm also gives you the Fatigue skill. This allows your attacks to add the lost HP stat that wolves inflict in the Felzida log, but it doesn't stack, meaning that each enemy unit can only lose 5 of their max HP. If you're a dragon unit, this also lowers that unit's defense. If you happen to be a covert unit, it lowers the unit's speed. Emblem Arm's engage attack is Send skill, a 1 to 3 range sword attack that is effective against dragons and corrupted. If attacking from a distance, the unit will advance to their enemy so that they are adjacent. If your Celica unit is adjacent to your Arm user before you advance, you get to use Send skill plus, where Celica also attacks with her Seraphim Tome. This attack will help footlocked units to bridge any movement gaps and hit hard against corrupted enemies. As for unit type bonuses, Dragon type units will get an extra 1 range, making it a 1 to 4 range attack, Key Adepts will break their foe with the attack, and backup units will do additional damage based on 20% of their defense stat. To get Arm as a playable emblem, you'll have to beat him on the Attack on Rigel castle map where Arm fought Rudolph. This will be a pretty straightforward map. Arm will start where Rudolph is and you'll have to funnel your units through a tight tunnel. The enemies will have access to Ballisti to make up for the fact that they don't have the same bow range as they did in SOV. To beat the map you just have to beat Arm. And that's the first emblem done. Let's move on to the next game. Sigurd's Emblem, Fire Emblem Genealogy. Okay, I'm going to be honest, trying to pick an emblem for this game was rough. I love Genealogy, but it was actually really hard to find a character that was relevant to the story, close to Sigurd, known in the fandom, and had enough available weapons and skills that they could uniquely contribute. Let's start with the bond rings and work our way through them. Deirdre is a story relevant character and close with Sigurd, but ultimately I couldn't think of how to make another light mage that's separate to Micaiah. Arden and Laxus both had a lot of weapon variety available but ultimately aren't story relevant. Similarly with Azel and Eranis, who have even less available to them in terms of unique weapons. I chose not to go with Ethlyn due to some of the other emblems I picked later down the line, plus she isn't that powerful of a unit, and I couldn't figure out how to make Salith distinct from his father. That left me with Quan, Ayra and Lewin. Each one had their own strengths and weaknesses. Quan is a powerful unit who gets the Gaia Bulga and is story relevant, but there aren't actually that many lances in the game that aren't already taken by Sigurd. Ayra is less story relevant, but does have access to the game's collection of swords. And Lewin has story relevance and access to a range of tomes and staves, but I wasn't sure if I could definitely make him distinct from some of the existing emblems like Soren, and my own picks for the other games as well. I think out of the 3 of them I made the right choice, so let's see which one I picked and how it turned out. Ayra, the Emblem of Duty, is found in the Bracelet of the Myrmidon. I chose Ayra because I felt like I could actually engineer her the easiest to have interesting and unique weapons and skills, and also because I really like Ayra. I went with the emblem title of Duty because Ayra is someone who feels a lot of responsibility towards her causes, her country, and her loved ones in her brother, her kids, and Shanann. Ayra has uses for crit builds or dodge tanking, making her a good emblem for fragile but fast units. Units with Ayra's ring equipped gain a bonus to their HP, dexterity and speed, and leveling your relationship with Ayra will give you sword proficiency. You can also inherit a boost to your hit and avoid stats from Ayra as well as your sword might skill, which boosts damage output when using a sword. For Ayra's sync skills, I gave her Adept and Kill Count. Now, Ayra didn't actually have Adept in Genealogy, but Pursuit is very unique to the gameplay of Genealogy, and this is the closest thing. In Engage, Ayra's Adept sync skill would work similarly to skills like Alacrity, where a unit is able to add 1 more attack if their dexterity meets a certain threshold compared to their opponent. How much dexterity would depend on which version of Adept you inherit, with each iteration requiring less of your opponent to attack again. Her other skill, Kill Count, is a reference to how the critical skill works in Genealogy. Every time you defeat a unit with a weapon, that weapon gains crit until the end of the battle. Engaging with Ayra gives you access to 3 swords: the Safeguard Sword, which buffs your defense, the Brave Sword, and the Balmung, which increases your speed by 5 in the same way that Turfing does for resistance. I know that Ayra technically can't use the Balmung on account of only having minor order blood, but it's feasible enough for the purpose of this game. Ayra's engaged skill is Nihil, which eliminates your opponent's skills and any weapon effectiveness they might have on you. It also takes away any stat or crit bonuses that are granted by a weapon, so that a killer axe has the same chance of critting as an iron axe. Obviously this doesn't eliminate the chance of any crits, but it does drastically reduce the chances. If you're a dragon unit though, you do become completely immune to critical hits. If you're a covert unit, Nihil also negates any bonuses that the enemy gets from their terrain. For the engage attack, I didn't want to go with Astra. We already have a multi-hit sword attack in the form of Marth's Lodestar Rush, and a 5-hit bow attack with Lynn's Astra Storm. For that reason, I gave Ayra the Blades of Isaac engage attack. Your unit attacks with help from Ayra's 2 children and Shanann. This involves 3 chain attacks from 3 sword fighters and 2 sword attacks from your unit. If your Sigurd unit is next to your Ayra user when you trigger this attack, you get another chain attack from that unit, and your Ayra user runs through their opponent just like the Swordmaster skill and Sigurd's override attack. As for unit bonuses on this attack, a dragon unit using Blades of Isaac will create 3 backup doubles on the map, just like Lynn's doubles. For backup units, the chain attacking units will have the Brave Assist skill and chain attack twice. Finally, flying units will add extra damage based on 25% of their speed stat. For Ayra's Paralogue, you're going to play on her Join map, which is chapter 1 of Genealogy. Obviously a Genealogy chapter is huge, so you wouldn't be playing the whole map, just the section where you recruit Ayra. You'll first have to defeat a troop of axe units led by a warrior, who in this map represents Kinbaith, to get Ayra to appear. Ayra will have a defense and res buff that can be removed by having a unit wait on Genoa Castle. Ayra is a boss who will move about, so you can either try to fight her with the defensive buff in place, or try to lure her away from the castle so you can hit the switch. Reinforcements will also come from the west, just like the units who followed Jew and Adane. Leif's Emblem, Fire Emblem Thracia 776. When it comes to Thracia, we also have a couple suitable candidates, but most were pretty easy to eliminate. Shiva, Marita and Alwyn aren't close to Leif or story relevant. Lenoa, Sarah and Zed are all mages who didn't feel like they had a strong presence. Asbel and Oshin were workable with some cool weapons, but ultimately not very important characters. And that just leaves Finn and Nanna, and this time around I'm going to go with Nanna. That's no shade to Finn, I just felt that his contributions wouldn't be as unique as a mounted healer, plus his iconic Brave Lance already went to Sigurd. So, let's see what Emblem Nanna can do for us. I struggled somewhat to come up with Nanna's emblem name, but eventually settled on the Emblem of Perseverance. This reflects her strong-willed personality that she demonstrates in Genealogy and the back end of Thracia, as well as the early story of Thracia being one of survival and persistence. It's also a good reflection of some of Nanna's contributions as an emblem. Nanna's emblem lives in the bracelet of the Troubadour and can be used to make both the unit equipping her and their nearby allies more resilient. Nanna is made to be useful to support units, whilst also making those units a little bit less vulnerable themselves. Equipping Nanna gives a unit additional magic, defense and luck, and allows them to gain proficiencies in staves, swords and lances. Nanna's bracelet also allows you to inherit a boost to magic and defense, as well as the Lance Might ability. For sync skills, I wanted to give Nanna Charm, but Chrom already took that skill. Instead, I gave her Triangle Accuracy and Miracle. Triangle Accuracy brings back the old weapon triangle mechanic and gives your unit additional hit when they have weapon triangle advantage, plus 5 for the base version and plus 10 for the plus version. Miracle is a reference to the suggestion in Thracia that she's Finn's daughter, and Finn being a popular husband for Loxus. I wanted this to echo both Genealogy and Thracia, so I had Miracle increase a unit's avoid skill by their luck stat when their HP is low, with the HP threshold for activation increasing the higher the level of the skill you inherit. For Nanna's engage weapons, I gave her 2 swords and a staff. The first weapon is the King's Sword, a weak sword with a brave effect that gives plus 10 hit and avoid to allies within 2 spaces. This allows Nanna to have something akin to the charm skill through her weapon. I also gave her Physic, which has infinite range like its Thracian version. And of course, we couldn't make Nanna an emblem without giving her the Earth Sword, which has a Nosferatu effect and deals magical damage. Just like Micaiah's Nosferatu tome, the user recovers 50% of the damage they deal. You also get the follow-up skill when you engage, which is a reference to some of the unique mechanics in Thracia's gameplay, mainly the follow-up crit multiplier and movement stars. When units are engaged with Nanna, they get an extra plus 10 crit on follow-up attacks and a 5% chance to move again. Dragon units would get a 20% chance to move again, and if you're a key adept, you also have a 75% chance to heal a unit twice when you use a healing staff. For Nanna's engage attack, I had to get a little bit creative, as Nanna herself isn't hugely fleshed out as a powerful character, nor does she really have unique skills. I decided to stick to the theme of perseverance and gave her endurance, a supportive ability that gives allies within 3 spaces the reflect physical damage skill for 1 turn. If Leif is adjacent to your Nanna user, then you get endurance plus, which also makes your allies immune to break for 1 turn. This could be a great help in enemy phasing or finishing off units that you just couldn't quite kill during the player phase. As for type bonuses, dragon units are also contracted after their turn, giving them the ability to act again without moving so that they can attack, heal a unit, or use an item. Flying units using endurance will remove any negative terrain bonuses impacting allies, and armoured units will give their allies +2 defense until the next turn. This could also help weaker units survive a round of combat until the next player phase so they can retreat. For Nanna's paralogue, it will take place on Nanna's join map in Thracia, mother and daughter. Aaliyah and another unit will start off in the arena where Nanna and I will begin, having to either fight off enemies in the arena or stay out of their way for long enough to allow your units to reach the door. Nanna will be positioned where Raedric sits, but there'll be a barrier meaning that you can't reach her. You get out of the arena by having a unit stand on the other side of the door, or by breaking it down, though it will have high durability. Once the door is opened, the barrier in front of Nanna will disappear and you'll be able to fight her. I tried to make sure this level was interesting with the arena, but also to make it achievable just in case your Aaliyah hasn't grown enough to hold their own. If that's the case, it will be possible with a bit of strategy and some 2 range attacks from your other units to just outlast the arena by waiting near the door until the rest of your army arrives. And with that, we're halfway through the 6 new emblems for the missing main series games. In the next video, I'll be discussing the other 3 emblems I designed for the remaining games of the Binding Blade, the Sacred Stones, and Radiant Dawn. But for now, let me know what your thoughts are on the emblems I've created so far. Which one's your favourite, and which one would you have done differently? Also let me know what characters you think I'll choose in the next video, which hopefully will go out next week. Until next time, take care.